Counsel, all ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I think there's one thing that we can address outside of the presence of the jury. The state would like to revisit the identification of the decedent, specifically Christopher Thomas. Your Honor had previously ruled that we could not, without proffering to you what we've done.
What? I'm sorry.
If you recall the arguments previously when the defense cited the case law, Your Honor was asking us what efforts we've made to utilize a non-family member for purposes of identification of decedents. So we have at this point subpoenaed multiple witnesses, including, for instance, Travion Glass, who's refused to come to testify. We've also subpoenaed Patrick DeLoach, who has had unsuccessful service on. We've subpoenaed Frito Bang, whose legal name is Frederick Gibbons. He has refused to comply with subpoenas, and his attorney, Danica Davis, who had previously accepted service on his behalf, has now no longer accepted service on his behalf, so we're unable to bring him in. And there was an additional witness who we have not been able to serve, Jacoby Mills, we have not been able to serve. At this point, the state's re-arguing and requesting that the court allow us to use the family members as the only credible witnesses that the state has to identify the decedents. Today, specifically, we could call Leondra Phillips, one for the purpose of identification, but also for other testimony. That's relevant to the case.
Thank you.
Your Honor, we find it to be disingenuous to make the argument that witnesses that the state has been unable to contact for the last 3 years, and they know they have, to say, but we really have been trying while we've been in trial, as though those 4 people who they know to be unavailable are the people that comprise the universe of people that can identify the 2 decedents. That's clearly not the case. For there to be a good effort, a good faith effort to identify somebody who's not a family member, they should maybe broaden their search to somebody that the family might know, maybe a very distant relative, something of that nature, as opposed to the 4 witnesses that they know that they have been unable to reach for 3 to 4 years. To now come and say, we're really still trying to reach them, Judge, is not passing the hurdle of good faith effort to find somebody other than a family member to testify. That is assuming that these are the only 4 people they know. And they already know that they can't find these people because they haven't been able to find them for 4 years. So to now come and say, we still can't find them, but we really have tried for the last 2 weeks, is not moving the ball an inch.
In addition to that, Your Honor,
Yes.
in addition to that, Trevon Glass is scheduled for a deposition tomorrow. The state informed us just recently, during the lunch break, that they anticipate he'll be here for deposition. So it's a little immature for them to bring up premature. I'm immature. To bring that up now.
Counsel, have you discussed with your witnesses the possibility of identifying their family members?
Yes, Judge. In fact, that was the reason we sought out Travion Glass after obtaining a new address. We specifically told him that we would only be calling him for the purpose of victim identification. He said even that he would not be willing to come and testify due to safety concerns. If Your Honor also recalls Ms. Bradley when Felicia Holmes was on the stand, she indicated that although she had met the decedents, that she was unable to identify them and unwilling to do so. The case law doesn't require the state to search the universe to be able to make an identification. We're proffering to the court that based on the discovery, based on our review of the case, we have no other credible witnesses that can identify the decedents.
My question, though, is, and maybe I wasn't clear enough with my question. Have you talked to family members about when they, assuming they testify and they are able to identify their loved ones, that it's concerning about what type of emotion they show and reflect, and we're looking really for more like an analytical, not some
Absolutely, Your Honor. We spoke with Ms. Phillips previously when we had first addressed this. I will remind her. In fact, Ms. Bradley proffered to the court that what we would do to minimize any sort of emotional response from the family members is that we would not even show them the photographs while they were on the stand. The photographs are actually already in evidence, so what I could do is just, having already previously shown her outside the presence of the jury, I would ask her to identify the ME number associated with that photograph and identify her son. And just for today's purposes, we would be only using Ms. Leondra Phillips.
Judge, number one, the rule wasn't voted. They never brought that to the court's attention to get permission to allow any witness to remain in the courtroom. If the court recalls, at the very beginning of this trial, we discussed Jamie King, the mother of our client. And the court, the state said they were not going to call her and had no objection. But we brought it to the court's attention immediately because we wanted permission of the court because she was listed as a state witness at one period of time. Now, I know they weren't going to call her because they gave us a Brady motion response indicating that she was under criminal investigation, which would indicate that she would invoke her Fifth Amendment privilege concerning this matter, or any matter. But we did bring it to the court's attention because of the rule, and now to hear that a witness has been sitting in this trial from day one, apparently.
Counsel, you think that's going to create the witness to fashion her testimony
I don't
in
know,
such a way?
I don't know. I'm not.
To her deposition, I think.
Yes, we did take her deposition, but not on legal ID. And nothing, I don't know what else they're going to profit.
Judge, in her deposition, she identifies one of the decedents as her son. Further, Judge, as Your Honor is aware, Marcy's law allows the next of kin to remain in the courtroom during the proceedings.
Thank you.
Yes. Can I just...
I'm not trying to belabor this, but certainly I've not heard any inquiry from the state to the mother or the parents or any close relative if they know of any of his friends or any distant relative.
My experience suggested more than half the times that this issue comes up that there's a stipulation. I understand the defendant doesn't have to stipulate the identity of the alleged victims, but typically it's done by some agreement, parties stipulate to it. It wasn't done in this case, that's fine. You raised it earlier, and I said, that's fine, see if you can get somebody else. Counsel explained to me they made a good faith effort to get somebody else to be able to testify. That hasn't happened yet. There's a lull in the proceedings, and they want to move on and cross that T, dot the I, and have the alleged victims identified. All right?
I also want the case to move along, but quite candidly, they have not even inquired from the family about any distant relative, or I've not heard any proffer from them, or any friends of his that could come in.
I just heard her indicate 3 or 4 people that she...
Those were all state witnesses that they have not been able to locate for 4 or 5 since the inception of this case. They've all been implicated, and I would suggest to you that one of the problems they have is that they could be charged with a crime. I don't represent them. I don't profess to represent them. I have not met them. But the witnesses that they have spoken about are all individuals that were at the studio or in one of the cars.
What's your concern about a family member identifying a victim?
Well, I think the case law is clear. That's frowned upon because of the potential problem.
And what's the potential problem?
The emotional problem that would cause a mistrial. And we've now been in this...
Didn't counsel just... Didn't I just indicate or ask the counsel to advise me if they've spoken with the family member who's going to identify, and they've indicated, and they're going to do to whatever they can to minimize it. They're not even going to publish the picture at the same time, is the way I understand it.
Well,
Right? So
Yes.
I'm past it, counsel, respectfully. I understand your objection. I asked the state to see what they can do to get a different witness in. Apparent to me that they've tried. They're unsuccessful in that area. You think greater efforts need to be done. But we'll let the family member, again, is going to identify or indicate to the family that they're not to have any outburst of emotion or anything like that. And just we're going to move forward.
Understand. The other component of the emotional and sympathy factor of a relative testifying is the juror hearing the voice and seeing the family member and thinking and developing a sympathy and maybe feeling like they owe them. So there's, even if they don't become emotional, the risk of that happening does exist.
When they show autopsy photos and everything else, there's all types of, and the juries are explained to try to, you got to separate the emotion from it. It's part of the jury instruction that we give at the later time. All
just
right?
note,
Serious case, and it's certain pictures and certain things are emotional. The juries are explained that in the instructions that they're not to let emotions play a role.
we understand the court's ruling, note our objection, and we certainly don't want to stand up and object of this testimony in front of the jury, because I think that draws more attention. So if the court will allow us to have an objection to this.
State have any objection to it? Standing
No.
objection?
No, you're not.
Just for the record, Your Honor, they might as well say they look for Jimmy Hoffman, because they made no effort beyond what they already know, or they just came and voiced the name of people they haven't been able to find.
Like a tandem thing. I thought we talked about one attorney making the argument. It goes back and forth all the time.
Just want to make sure we have a complete record.
Well, then talk to yourselves about it beforehand. But one attorney making the case, she's arguing for the state on this issue. One of you should be able to argue the issue, not have both of you come back and one after the next. All right? I've ruled.
Thank you, sir.
Let's bring the jury in. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Trust you had a nice lunch. Let the record reflect the presence of our jury, the defendant, the defendants, the counsel, and the assistant state attorney. Let me hear the published.
Your Honor, we were going to call the witness at this time, Leondra Phillips.
Phillips, please. Ms. Phillips. Welcome. Come on up here, please. When you get to that chair, what I'd like to do is remain standing. Raise your right hand and be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please state your full legal name for the record.
Leondra Phillips.
Please spell your first and last name for the court reporter.
Leondra, Leondra, Phillips, Phillips.
Thank you.
Please have a seat. Ms. Phillips, that microphone will go up or down, but doesn't move back and forth. Okay. Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Phillips.
Hi, how are you?
Can you state your name, your full legal name for the jury?
I'm Leondra Phillips.
Okay. And are you related to one of the decedents in this case?
Yes, I am.
How so?
I'm his mother,
And who is that?
Christopher Thomas.
And you have previously been shown outside the presence of the jury a photograph with ME number 18-3119. And that was a head photograph. It's now in evidence under States 75. I believe it's photograph number 4. Who was that? Were you able to view that photograph?
That was my son.
If you recall, we showed it to you previously, the headshot with the medical examiner's number. Who was that in that photograph?
Christopher Thomas, my son.
Okay. And also, Publishing States 7. paused it at 2/19/15. Ms. Phillips, did you see who entered into, the occupants who entered into that gray Jeep? And is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you recognize where your son entered that gray Jeep?
Yes.
Which seat, if you can identify for the jury?
He got in the back seat on the right-hand side.
Did you recognize the individual that got into the back seat on the left side, the rear driver's side?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
Jamell.
And Jamell, is that the defendant, Jamell Demons?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know him by another name?
Melly.
And do you see Melly Jamell Demons in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify him by article of clothing and where he's sitting in the courtroom?
He's sitting over there. He have a tuxedo. Or I think it was for.
Okay. Your Honor, let the record reflect the identification of the defendant by this witness.
The record shall so reflect the in-court identification of the defendant.
Nothing further.
Ms. Phillips, we want to express our condolences to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing further.
Thank you. You can step down. Thank you, ma'am.
This time the state's going to publish 61, state 60.